Hello, friends. I hope things are going well with you and yours. And I certainly pray and hope that this shutdown has not had any adverse effect upon you personally. I want to let you know that we're praying daily for those of you who are suffering financially from this, and particularly we're praying for those who have underlying conditions. A number of our friends are in that situation, and we're praying earnestly for God's protection around them. I just always pray, God, put a bubble of protection so that the virus can't touch them. This virus, it looks like that the severity of it may have been overstated and that the government may have overreached since they're kind of downsizing a lot of their estimates, sometimes by 20 to 30 times less than what they thought. It's arguable that some of the steps we've taken to isolate in place has helped, and I'm sure it has helped to some degree. But there's also that concern that maybe we reacted too quickly and too firmly. And the fact that we get kind of contradictory information, don't wear face masks, now wear face masks, what that really does is it tends to lead to a lot of people feeling like we're being subject to some kind of diabolical conspiracy. I mean, I've received a lot of emails from different people talking about 5G is the cause of the phone system of 5G is causing these health effects, and it's not the virus. I don't think that's accurate. I mean, 5G, actually, if you look at your phone, it says 5G. Let me tell you something that the phone company doesn't want to tell you. They don't actually have 5G. They just relabeled it. 5G is still not operational, except in a very, very limited bandwidth. So you're not being bombarded by those waves. And I'm also told by people who tell me they know what they're talking about, that the kind of waves that are being sent out can't have that physical effect on people. And that's just a lot of propaganda. There's also people who have talked about this is a biological weapon. But again, everything I've read and even people in the medical profession I've talked to said no, it's clearly a coronavirus, which basically comes out of the animal world where most of these flus and viruses come from. And so we're not being attacked by the Chinese or anybody else. Somebody said that they heard that there's an asteroid coming towards Earth that's going to annihilate most of the planet, and therefore that's why the government in their kindness wants to keep us calm. But again, that doesn't even make logical sense, because what difference would it make if they keep us calm if we're going to be decimated? And particularly, I don't see in the Bible that that's how the world ends. There are a lot of other things. We still have the Great Tribulation that has to take place. So I don't think that that's something. And I know somebody, as soon as I say that, will find a Bible passage and say, oh yeah, well, what about this? Because they see it as being an asteroid. Well, I don't want to argue over it, because I can't say it's not and you can't say it is, honestly. And then, are we facing a government takeover? And I don't disagree that there are people out there who would like to do that. I mean, when I hear some of the harebrained plans that are being put out by supposedly intelligent, informed people, I think to myself, there's got to be something else. It can't be this stupid. There's got to be something else that they're trying to machinate. So, but at the same time, I don't think it's working real well if that's the plan. And I think that if we can just get back to work and begin to regain and rebuild a normalcy into our life, that a lot of these kind of fears will go away and the kind of crazy ideas that go with them. That's not to say that there isn't a diabolical conspiracy. There has always been. It started in the Garden of Eden, and it's continued up into our present time, that there is an enemy who is invisible to us, but who is very active and very powerful, very influential, often in the highest places of power around the world. And I know that the enemy is at work. Here's the thing that we have to keep in mind, is that we're not going to be able to resist that or overcome that or defeat that by simply worrying about it or talking about it and tweeting about it. The way it's going to be that battle is going to be won is going to be through our prayers. And that really resonated with me in a new way when one of the folks who listens in regular sent me a copy of the National Day of Proclamation, or National Day of Fasting and Prayer, that President Lincoln sent out to the country in 1863 in the midst of the Civil War. And in that proclamation of prayer, he said some things that I thought sounded so current to our present situation. He says, "We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have been preserved these many years in peace and prosperity. We have grown in numbers, wealth, and power as no other nation has ever grown. But we have forgotten God. We have forgotten the gracious hand which preserved us in peace and multiplied and enriched and strengthened us. And we have vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our hearts that all these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom and virtue of our own. Intoxicated with unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God that made us. As I said, when I was reading those words, I thought to myself, this could have been written today, because this is essentially the situation we're in as a nation right now. We are extremely prosperous, and even though we've had foreign wars, we've had no wars on our own soil. And the vast majority of us, only a small percentage, have actually had the trauma of having to go into conflict in foreign nations. And so there's a way of almost believing that because we're Americans, we're made of some kind of special stuff, and that's why we're so rich and prosperous and powerful, when in fact, as we used to say, God's shown his grace upon us. And as America was defined as a Christian nation, and at least had kind of a common value set of the Christian faith, that prosperity seemed to have no limits. But today we have more and more forgotten God, as we all know that God has been pushed out of the public marketplace and out of the places of government, and we've allowed all sorts of ungodliness to flourish in the land. And then when catastrophe comes, we wonder what went wrong. I would simply say that there are probably a lot of things that you and I can deal with and address, but the bottom line, I think we have to really focus on, God, what is it that you're trying to minister to me in my life? What are the truths that I need to derive from this? That when we stop and pray, instead of saying, God, change this, change this, change this, fix that, deal with this and deal with that, if we just simply say, God, what is it that you want to say to me? What is it that I need to hear from you today? How do you want to teach and instruct me? What are some areas in my life where I need to make some changes? I'm reminded of Solomon's statement in Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 15, where he said, it's the little foxes that destroy the vineyard. What are the little foxes that are ruining the vineyard of your life? They're the little things oftentimes that we know aren't quite right, but we never really get around to dealing with them. This is one of those times, I think, where we have the opportunity to really work through some issues between us and God and experience a greater dimension of his grace and power in our lives. So anyway, till next time, thank you for giving me the pleasure to share these things with you and unburden my heart a bit. I just want to let you know that they speak as much to me as I hope they speak to you. God blessings, and go in his grace. Amen.